Favorite faction for many players, and I suspect mainly because of the movie 300 and the almost mythical battle of Thermopylae, where the 300 Spartans held out for against a force of, was it 10 billion? 10 billion Persians, I think it was. But anyway, they were supported by thousands of other Greek troops, but it was just the last stand of the Spartans that was made most famous. And for your general options, you have Heroes of Sparta. I don't like Heroes of Sparta at all, and this is mainly because they have low armor piercing damage. They can hold out for quite some time in melee, but they are an inferior choice compared to the Royal Spartans that have 120 men per unit and that have 8 armor piercing damage. So the Heroes of Sparta have higher melee attack, but they do less armor piercing damage. They also have a higher bonus versus large, but large units not really a problem for Sparta anyway. For your spear infantry, Sparta has no melee infantry, but they do have spear infantry. You have your Spartan Youths, Heroica Hoplites, Spartan Hoplites, Heroes of Sparta again, and the Royal Spartans. So the Spartan Youths, pretty decent low tier spear infantry that can take care of enemy cavalry. Your Perokoi spears that throw javelins before charging in, and they can also use the square formation. Cheap, decent units. Your Perokoi Hoplites, low morale for a Hoplite unit, but decent armor and decent stats all over. Then you have your Spartan Hoplites, and these are very tanky, high mid-tier Hoplite units with okay weapon damage, decent armor piercing, good melee attack, good charge bonus. And when you use these units against infantry, you want to charge them in, and then you want to activate Hoplite Wall to give them the bonus of 5 against infantry and the ability to stay in the fight longer. They also have Pikes, and Perokoi Pikes, cheap, decent pikemen. The Spartan Pikes have very good stats for their price, good melee attack, they have good armor, good health, and very good morale. For the missile infantry, you have your standard crappy missile infantry. You have the Gorgo skirmishers that have slightly better morale than your crappy skirmishers, and they are on level with the Eastern slingers when it comes to their armor piercing damage, and they have a high number of shots per minute. So bringing these gals is going to be very useful. Then you have the Perokoi peltasts, standard peltast unit with good armor and missile damage. Then you have the Mercenary Rodents and the Mercenary Cretans. These guys are the same as the Mercenary Rodents and Cretans of other factions. Some of the best skirmishing units in the game. Sparta lacks good cavalry. They only have citizen cavalry, skirmisher cavalry, and Tarentines. Now, for typical Spartan builds, you are probably going to want to tank up on your Royal Spartans. And just how many you bring, that depends on the faction you're facing. But it can be nice to bring 6 of them, and to have the rest of your force be Spartan Hoplites. Now you have 10 very strong Hoplite units, and with this you're going to be able to afford some Gorgos, but you don't really have cavalry options. So if you remove 2 Royal Spartans, you're going to be able to bring more Gorgo skirmishers, you're going to be able to bring some citizen cavalry to protect yourself from being rear charged and such, which can be very important. Now if you want to do a slightly different thing here and bring some Spartan Pikes, you can bring, or even your Perokoi Pikes, because they're so cheap, you can bring a center line of Perokoi Pikes. You can have your skirmishers behind them, and then you can use some cheaper units for running after enemy cavalry. You can go for more skirmishers, but it's going to be difficult to protect your skirmishers with Sparta, so it might be a good idea to have your skirmishers be more concentrated, go for a bit less cavalry, and then you have the funds to go for additional Spartan Hoplites and some Spartan Youths. Some people also like the Perokoi spears, but they are pretty weak spear unit, decent armor and such, but Sparta can both work in a rushing fashion and in a defensive fashion, depending on if you bring your pikes for the center or if you just want to go for a lot of your Spartan Hoplites. But still, Sparta is very predictable. But even though they are predictable, Sparta is extremely hard to kill because of their high armor and their ability to go into phalanx. So Sparta isn't very good against the strong sword factions, but they can be a decent counter to your skirmish builds and and your builds that rely on a lot of cavalry, because it's going to be difficult to kill Spartans with missiles, since most of the units have a 50% chance of blocking incoming missiles. So if you use many Royal Spartans, you can see quite a lot of heroic last stands with the Royal Spartans holding out and getting kills when the unit is decimated. So there are several different things you can do with Sparta, but the main killing power is always going to come from either strong skirmishing components backed up by spears, or from just a strong line of Spartan hoplites. So that's it for Sparta. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again on the battlefield.